Alright, Reddit, I never thought I'd be here writing something like this, but I need advice. Or maybe I just need to get this all out before I lose my mind. Either way, buckle up, because this is some next-level betrayal that I never saw coming. So, my name's Mark, 38M. I own a multimillion-dollar auto business, worked my way up from nothing. I met my wife, Hannah, 34F, 9 years ago, and we've been married for 6. Everything seemed fine, or at least I thought so. Turns out, my wife and her family had a whole secret operation running behind my back. This all started a few weeks ago when Hannah called me while I was at work, said she needed me home early. Wouldn't say why, just that it was important family stuff, and she wanted me there for support. I should have known something was off from the way she sounded, but I brushed it off. I figured maybe it was about her sister, Susan, 36F, who had been struggling with infertility for years. We had already had some heated discussions with Hannah's family about IVF and egg donation, and I thought maybe she wanted to go over it again. I leave work early, drive home, and as soon as I pull into the driveway, I see a bunch of cars parked outside. That sinking feeling in my gut starts. Inside, the whole gang is there: Hannah, her mom Stephanie, Susan, Susan's husband, and even Hannah's aunt. Everyone's sitting in the living room, and the second I walk in, all eyes are on me. Stephanie, the mastermind of the family, gets up and smiles at me like I just walked into my own birthday party. "Mark, sit down, sweetheart. We need to talk." Hannah gives me this tight smile, like she's nervous. I sit, confused as hell, and that's when they drop it on me. "We need you to be open-minded about this." Stephanie starts, and I swear my stomach twists. Hannah clears her throat, avoiding eye contact. "Mark, you know how much Susan wants a baby, and how much Mom wants a biological grandchild." I nod, still not understanding where this is going. Susan, looking teary-eyed but hopeful, speaks up. "We talked about IVF, but Mom doesn't think it's natural. And adoption isn't really an option because it wouldn't be a real family connection." My heart starts pounding. What the hell are they trying to say? Then, Stephanie delivers the final blow. "We've found a better solution, a natural one. Hannah will carry the baby, but it won't be yours." I blink. "Excuse me?" Hannah, now fidgeting with her fingers, finally looks at me. I'll get pregnant with a donor. Naturally, my whole body goes cold. Takes me a second to even process what I just heard. "So, you're saying you want to cheat on me to give Susan a baby?" Hannah flinches at the word cheat, but her mother jumps in. "It's not cheating if it's for family, Mark. It's a sacrifice for something bigger than just a marriage." I laugh, not because it's funny, but because it's so insane that my brain doesn't know how else to react. "You all planned this? You really sat around and thought, hey, let's ask Mark if his wife can sleep with another man so we can have a grandchild?" "It's not like that," Hannah protests. "We were going to tell you sooner, but we didn't know how to bring it up. We didn't want to upset you." "Upset me? Upset me?" Stephanie keeps going, trying to sell it to me. "We already have someone in mind. He's healthy, strong genes. No health issues in his family." I shoot up from my seat. "You've already picked the guy? You were planning this before even asking me?" Silence. That's when I know. They weren't just thinking about this. They were doing it. Or at least they were ready to. And Hannah, my wife, was in on it. Now I don't know what to do. I need to get my head straight because this isn't just betrayal. This is something else entirely. And the worst part? I have a feeling this isn't even the whole story. Alright, so after they dropped this insane proposal on me, I sat there in complete shock. My own wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, just admitted that she was willing, no planning, to cheat on me with another man. And not just for fun. Oh no, this was a family-approved, prearranged betrayal. My mind was racing. I needed to think, and I needed proof. If I walked out of that house right then, they'd spin the story however they wanted. I could already hear Stephanie saying, "Oh, Mark got upset over nothing. He's just selfish." Nope, not happening. So I did what any man in my position would do. I pulled out my phone, set it to record, and slid it into my pocket. "Let me get this straight," I said, keeping my voice as calm as I could. You all got together and decided that Hannah should sleep with some guy to give Susan a baby? Hannah winced but nodded. And you thought I would just go along with it? Stephanie sighed like I was the difficult one here. Mark, this isn't about you. It's about family. I looked at Susan, who had tears in her eyes. Her husband, Greg, was sitting there awkwardly, not saying a word, probably because he knew how insane this sounded. I suggested IVF. I reminded them. I said I'd even help with the costs. I said we could explore surrogacy, adoption, and we said no to those. Stephanie cut in. It needs to be a biological grandchild. No test tubes. No strangers. No legal mess. And the best way to do that, Hannah added softly, is if I carry the baby. I stared at her. And that means you sleep with another man. She had the nerve to look offended at the way I said it. It's not like that, Mark. Then what's it like? I snapped. Explain it to me, because from where I'm sitting, it sounds exactly like that. That's when Stephanie pulled out her trump card. Mark, if you really loved Hannah, you'd understand that this is bigger than just your marriage. So now I was the problem. I was the one being selfish. You know what? I finally said, standing up. I need some air. Hannah's eyes widened. Mark, please don't overreact. Overreact. I laughed, shaking my head. I just found out my wife is actively planning to cheat on me with her family's blessing. Forgive me if I need a second to process that. I turned and walked straight out of there. My hands were shaking, my heart was pounding, and my mind was already a step ahead. I drove off, parked down the street, and pulled out my phone. The whole conversation was recorded. Every word, every excuse, every lie, and I had a feeling I'd need it very, very soon. I sat in my car, replaying the recording over and over, just trying to understand how the hell my life had come to this. My wife, the woman I loved, had been plotting this behind my back. And not just her, her entire family was in on it. The worst part? Hannah was acting like this was normal, like I was the crazy one for not immediately going along with it. I needed answers. I didn't go back home that night. Instead, I drove to a hotel, checked in, and sat in that quiet room staring at my phone. My mind was racing. Something about this whole situation felt off. I kept thinking about how Hannah had been acting lately, secretive, distant, emotionally unavailable. At first, I thought it was stress from dealing with Susan's fertility issues. But now I wasn't so sure. I decided to do a little digging. Step 1. Checking Hannah's phone logs. We're on a shared phone plan, and while I couldn't see her messages, I could check call logs online. I logged in and scrolled through the records, and that's when my stomach dropped. There was a number. One she had been calling and texting a lot over the past 2 months. At odd hours. Long conversations. Frequent texts. And it wasn't Susan, or her mom, or anyone I recognized. I copied the number and searched it online. No name popped up, just a generic listing. A burner phone. Maybe? That's when I knew I wasn't just dealing with a plan to cheat. Hannah was already hiding something bigger. Step 2. Checking our home cameras. I have security cameras at home, just a simple setup to monitor the front door and driveway. I hadn't checked them in weeks, but now I had a reason. I pulled up the footage from the past month and scanned through the days when I had been working late. And that's when I saw it. A black SUV pulling into our driveway. A man getting out. Hannah meeting him at the door, looking around like she didn't want anyone to see. Then letting him inside. Twice. 2 different nights while I was working late. I felt my entire body go numb. This wasn't about Susan. This wasn't about a baby. Hannah was already cheating. And now they were trying to sell me some insane story to make it acceptable and cover her tracks. My hands were shaking as I paused the video. I had proof. The recording of the family's twisted plan. The call logs. The security footage. And now it was time to find out exactly who Hannah was sneaking around with. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was Hannah opening the door for that guy. The way she looked around first, like she knew damn well she was doing something wrong. This wasn't just a plan, this was happening. And I needed to know who this guy was. Step 1. Running the plate. Luckily for me, the security camera caught a good shot of the SUV's license plate. Now, I don't have direct access to DMV records, but I know people who do. Business connections. Friends in the auto industry. I made a call. Hey, I need a plate run. Discreetly. A couple of hours later, I got a text back with a name. Ryan Calloway. Didn't ring a bell. I did a quick search and found his LinkedIn. Turns out he was a personal trainer. Owned his own gym. Now, I don't go to the gym much, I have a home setup, but Hannah does. And guess where she's been going? Yep, his gym. This was her trainer. And apparently a whole lot more than that. Step 2. Checking her location history. Hannah isn't the most tech-savvy person, which worked in my favor. A while back, we shared our locations on Google Maps, mostly for safety reasons. She probably forgot. Pulled it up. Sure enough, over the past month, she'd been making extra trips to the gym. Not just her usual workouts, late-night visits. More than that, on the same nights the SUV was in my driveway. I had her. At this point, my heart wasn't even racing anymore. It was like my emotions shut off. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was just done. But I wasn't about to just walk away. No. Hannah wanted to play games? Play too. Step 3. Setting the trap. I needed more than just suspicion. More than the phone logs. More than the security footage. I needed confirmation. So I planned something. I'd act like everything was fine. Go home. Pretend I bought their stupid story about helping Susan. Then, when she least expected it, I'd catch her in the act. And once I had everything, she'd regret ever thinking she could fool me. I wasn't about to blow up just yet. No, I needed more. I needed to catch Hannah red-handed. So I played dumb. The next day, I walked into the house like nothing happened. Hannah was in the kitchen, pretending to act normal, but I could tell she was nervous. "Oh, thank God," she said, rushing over to me. "I was so worried about you last night." Worried? Right. More like worried I had figured her out. "Yeah, I just needed some time," I sighed, forcing a tired smile. "Everything you guys said caught me off guard." Hannah's face softened, and she took my hand. "I know, baby, but I promise this is the best way. You'll see." I wanted to laugh. The best way? For who? But I kept my cool. "I just need a little time to wrap my head around it." She nodded quickly, relief washing over her face. "Of course. I knew you'd understand." "Oh, I understand perfectly. I just needed her to think she was winning. And it didn't take long for her to slip up. The first lie. That afternoon, Hannah got a text. I wasn't even being sneaky. She was standing right in front of me. But when her phone buzzed, she flinched. Like she wasn't expecting it. Like she didn't want me to see. I casually glanced over and saw the notification. "Ryan, can't wait to see you tonight." Hannah quickly tilted her phone away and forced a smile. "Oh, that's just Susan. She's been stressing out about everything." Susan? The level of confidence in her lie was almost impressive. I pretended not to notice. "You heading out later?" "Yeah," she said casually. "Just a quick trip to the store." "A quick trip? Huh?" I smiled. "Okay. Want me to come with you?" Panic flashed across her face for a split second before she covered it up. No, I'll be quick. You should relax. Maybe take a bath." A bath? Now she was trying to get me to stay put? That was all the confirmation I needed. Setting the trap. So I did what any betrayed husband with a plan would do. I told her, "Yeah, maybe I will." Then I waited. Hannah left around 7 p.m., still thinking she had me fooled. I gave it 10 minutes. Then, I grabbed my keys and followed her. Not to the store. Not to Susan's house. But straight to Ryan Calloway's gym. And I wasn't alone. I had a friend waiting for me there. And he had a camera. I parked down the street from Ryan's gym, keeping my distance. My buddy James was already there, sitting in his car with a camera in hand. He owns a private security company, so this kind of surveillance was second nature to him. "She inside?" I asked as I slid into the passenger seat. James nodded. Walked in like she owned the place. Didn't even check if anyone was watching. Typical. I leaned back, staring at the entrance. My mind was racing, but my body was calm. Too calm. It was like my emotions had shut off completely. Then, right on cue, the gym's back door opened. And there she was, Hannah, walking out with Ryan. And it wasn't just a friendly exit. She was giggling, playfully pushing his arm. Her face lit up like a damn teenager sneaking out of her parents' house. Then, the final nail in the coffin. Ryan grabbed her waist, pulled her in, and kissed her. A full-on, no doubt about it kiss. And she didn't pull away. She melted into it. James snapped a few pictures, but I wasn't even looking at the camera anymore. I was just watching it happen. And that's when I realized, this wasn't some sacrifice for family. This wasn't about Susan. Hannah was in love with this guy, and she was trying to gaslight me into accepting it. I clenched my jaw and exhaled slowly. "Send those to me," I said, my voice eerily steady. James glanced at me. "You good?" I nodded. "Yeah, I just needed confirmation. Because now it was my turn to play the game. And Hannah had no idea what was coming. I had the proof. The recording, the phone logs, the security footage, and now, crystal clear photos of Hannah kissing Ryan. But I wasn't going to confront her. Not yet. If she wanted to treat me like a fool, I'd let her think she was winning. Then, when the time was right, I'd burn her entire plan to the ground. Step 1. Pretend nothing happened. I drove home before Hannah did. When she finally walked in, she had that fake innocent look on her face, like she had just been running errands, instead of swapping spit with her gym boyfriend. "Hey, babe," she said sweetly, dropping her purse by the door. "Did you relax?" I smiled. "Yeah, just took it easy." She leaned in and kissed my cheek like she wasn't betraying me behind my back. It took every ounce of self-control not to flinch. Instead, I played along. Let her dig her own grave deeper. "So," I said, acting casual, "I've been thinking about what your family said." Her eyes lit up. "Really?" I nodded. "Yeah, I don't want to be selfish. If this is really important to you and your family, maybe we can figure something out." Hannah beamed. "I knew you'd come around. Oh my God, Mark. This means so much to me." I almost laughed. Step 2. The dinner trap. The next day, I called Stephanie, Hannah's mother. "Hey, I've been thinking," I told her. "I want to talk more about this whole plan. Can we have dinner at our place? Bring Susan and her husband too." Stephanie practically squealed with excitement. "Oh, Mark, I knew you'd understand. Of course, we'll be there." Hannah was thrilled when I told her. She had no idea she was walking into an ambush. That night, everyone gathered in our dining room. Hannah sat next to me, holding my hand like we were some united front. Stephanie, Susan, and Greg sat across from us, all smiling like they had already won. "So, Mark," Stephanie started, "you've been thinking about our proposal?" I took a deep breath, pretending to hesitate. "Yeah, I wasn't sure at first, but I think I'm ready to make a decision." Hannah squeezed my hand. Her eyes filled with excitement. Everyone leaned in, waiting, expecting me to agree. I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and hit play. Step 3. Exposing everything. Hannah's voice filled the room. "We've found a better solution. A natural one. I'll get pregnant, but it won't be Mark's." Silence. Susan's face froze. Greg looked mortified. Stephanie's jaw dropped. Hannah? She went pale. Then, before she could say a word, I swiped to the next piece of evidence. A photo of her and Ryan, mid-kiss. "Funny," I said, my voice cold. "I thought this was about helping Susan, but it looks like you were already helping yourself to someone else." Hannah gasped. "Mark." I wasn't done. I tossed my phone on the table, the proof right in front of them. "Your little plan was never about Susan, was it?" I turned to Stephanie. "This was just your excuse to cover up your daughter's affair." Stephanie turned red. "Mark, let's not jump to conclusions." "Jump to conclusions?" I laughed. "I have the recording, the photos, the call logs, the security footage. I leaned back. Go ahead. Tell me I'm wrong. Silence. Greg suddenly stood up, looking at Susan like she had slapped him. You knew about this? He hissed. Susan's lip trembled. I just thought. You thought what? He exploded. That this was normal? Hannah was shaking. Mark, I was going to tell you. When? I shot back. Before or after you got pregnant with another man's child? Tears welled up in her eyes. I didn't mean for this to happen. I stood up, towering over her. You had every chance to tell me the truth, but instead you lied. Over and over. She broke down crying. Stephanie, still trying to control the situation, stood up. Mark, honey, let's talk about this privately. No. I cut her off. We're done here. I turned to Greg. You deserve to know. This whole thing? It was a scam. They were going to push you out of the picture too. They didn't want Susan to use a sperm donor because then you'd be the father legally. They wanted a stranger so they could pretend Greg never existed. Greg looked at Susan in disgust. Is this true? Susan burst into tears. That was enough for him. Greg grabbed his jacket and stormed out. Susan ran after him. Stephanie just sat there, realizing she had lost. And Hannah? She looked up at me, begging. Mark, please. I picked up my phone, turned to her, and said the words I had been waiting to say. I'll be filing for divorce first thing in the morning. Then I walked out, and I never looked back. The second I walked out of that house, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, just relief. I got in my car and drove straight to James's place. The moment I stepped inside, he took one look at me and handed me a beer. So? He asked. How bad did it get? I took a sip, exhaling slowly. Greg stormed out. Susan started crying. Hannah begged. Stephanie looked like her head was about to explode. James grinned. And you? I told her I'm filing for divorce and left. He let out a low whistle. Damn, you really did it. Damn right I did. The aftermath begins. By the time I woke up the next morning, my phone was flooded with messages. Hannah, 7 missed calls, 15 texts. Mark, please come home. We need to talk. I made a mistake, but I love you. Please don't do this. I can fix this. Stephanie, 4 missed calls, 5 texts. Mark, this is a misunderstanding. Let's be adults and talk. I know you're angry, but don't make a rash decision. Susan, 2 texts. I'm so sorry, Mark. I didn't think it would go this far. Greg, 1 missed call, 1 text. Call me. We need to talk. Guess who I didn't hear from? Ryan. I had a feeling I knew why. Step 1, filing for divorce. Before anything else, I wanted to make this official. I called my lawyer first thing and scheduled an appointment. By noon, I had filed for divorce on the grounds of adultery. I didn't just want out. I wanted everything I could get. Hannah had always been comfortable. Lived in the house I bought, drove the car I paid for, spent my money like it was hers. Now, she was about to learn what it felt like to lose everything. Step 2, talking to Greg. Greg called me again while I was driving home. This time I answered. Mark, he said, his voice rough. Man, I don't even know what to say. I sighed. Neither does your wife, apparently. Silence. Then he exhaled sharply. I left. I packed a bag last night and went to my brother's place. I can't even look at Susan right now. Good, I said simply. She knew about this whole plan, Greg. They were trying to cut you out completely. Yeah, I know that now. I could hear the pain in his voice. I'm getting a lawyer, he finally said. I don't think I can stay in this marriage. You shouldn't, I told him. She didn't just betray you. She tried to make it normal. Greg was quiet for a moment, then said, You know what the worst part is? What? I actually felt guilty for saying no to their plan at first, like I was being unreasonable. I clenched my jaw. That's what they do. They make you doubt yourself. He let out a humorless chuckle. Well, not anymore. Good. One more person free from their manipulation. Step 3, Hannah's last attempt. When I got back to my place, Hannah's car was in the driveway. I sighed. I knew this was coming. I stepped inside, and there she was, sitting on the couch, eyes red from crying. "Mark," she whispered, standing up. I held up a hand. "Save it." She shook her head. "Please, just hear me out." I crossed my arms. "You have 5 minutes." She rushed toward me, trying to grab my hands, but I stepped back. She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "I was scared, Mark. I knew I was making a mistake, but I didn't know how to stop. Mom kept pushing, and I cut her off. Don't blame Stephanie for this. You were sneaking around with Ryan. You were lying to my face." Tears streamed down her cheeks. "I didn't mean to hurt you." I let out a cold laugh. "That's funny, because you sure as hell put in a lot of effort to make sure I didn't find out." She collapsed onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. "I love you, Mark. I don't want to lose you." "You already did," I said flatly. She froze, looking up at me with wide, desperate eyes. I pulled an envelope from my jacket and tossed it onto the coffee table. "That's a copy of the divorce papers. My lawyer will be in touch." Hannah stared at the envelope like it was a bomb about to go off. "Mark," she whispered, "please, don't do this." I gave her one last look at the woman I had once loved, the woman I thought I would spend my life with. Then I walked to the door and held it open. "Goodbye, Hannah." And just like that, it was over. I thought walking out on Hannah would be the end of it, that she'd take the divorce papers, cry for a few days, and then move on. I was wrong. Hannah wasn't just going to let go. Step 1. The love bombing begins. The next morning, my phone started blowing up. "Hannah, 12 missed calls, 20 texts. Mark, please just talk to me. I don't care about Ryan. I only love you. We can fix this. I'll do anything. Just don't throw us away." Stephanie, 5 texts. "You're overreacting, Mark. Every marriage has obstacles. Hannah is devastated. You need to talk to her." Susan, 1 text. "I know you hate me, but please, don't hate Hannah. She was pressured into this." Oh, so now she was pressured? I ignored them all. But Hannah wasn't done. By the afternoon, she showed up at my office. Yes, my workplace. I was in the middle of a meeting when my assistant knocked, looking panicked. Mr. Ashworth? Your wife is here. She's, crying." I clenched my jaw. Of course she was. I stood up, adjusted my tie, and walked out into the lobby. And there she was, Hannah, sitting on one of the chairs, sobbing into her hands, making a scene. My employees were staring, whispering to each other. I marched straight up to her. "What the hell are you doing here, Hannah?" She looked up at me with bloodshot eyes. "You won't answer my calls. What else was I supposed to do?" "Take the hint," I said coldly. She sniffled. "Mark, please. We need to talk. In private." I grabbed her arm, gently but firmly, and led her outside. "You don't get to show up at my job and act like a victim," I hissed. "You brought this on yourself." She shook her head. "I know I messed up, but I was lost, Mark. I let my family control me, and I made a mistake." "A mistake?" I scoffed. "Sleeping with another man is a mistake? Planning to have his baby behind my back is a mistake." She flinched but didn't back down. "It wasn't like that." I pulled my phone out of my pocket. "Should I play the recording again?" Her face crumbled. "You lied," I continued. "You manipulated me, and you expected me to just accept it. You don't get to stand here and act like you deserve forgiveness." Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Mark, please. I'll do anything. Just don't leave me." I exhaled, stepping back. "I already did." Then I walked back inside, leaving her standing there in the cold. She stayed in the parking lot for almost an hour before finally driving away. Step 2. Ryan's unexpected visit. I thought I was done dealing with this mess. Then, later that night, I got an unexpected knock on my door. I opened it, and there he was, Ryan, the man my wife cheated on me with, standing on my porch. I clenched my fists. "You've got about 5 seconds to tell me why the hell you're here before I make you regret it." Ryan held up his hands. "Look, man, I just want to talk." I narrowed my eyes. "Talk about what?" He sighed, rubbing his jaw. Hannah called me. She's losing it, man. She won't stop crying, won't leave her house, won't eat. She's saying she's gonna do something stupid. I crossed my arms. And that's my problem because? Ryan sighed again. Look, I never meant for this to happen. I laughed in his face. Oh, really? You didn't mean to sleep with a married woman? Didn't mean to let her plan a whole life with you behind my back? He looked down. I didn't know about that part. Bull. I stopped myself, exhaling sharply. Let me guess. Now that she's single, she's clinging to you, and you don't want her anymore. Ryan didn't answer. I smirked. Yeah, that's what I thought. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't want anything bad to happen to her, man. I tilted my head. And I don't care. He blinked. What? I don't care. I repeated. You wanted her. You got her. Deal with the consequences. I took a step closer, dropping my voice to a deadly calm. And if you ever show up at my house again, I won't just be talking. Ryan gulped. Then, without another word, he turned and walked back to his car. I stood there, watching him drive away. Hannah was spiraling, and it wasn't my job to save her. The next morning, I got a text from Susan. Mark, I'm really worried about Hannah. She won't stop crying. She's saying she has nothing left. Please, can you just talk to her? I didn't reply. Then, an hour later, Stephanie called. I let it go to voicemail. Mark, I know you're angry, but Hannah is in a really bad place. She's barely eating or sleeping. Just give her a chance to explain herself. Explain what? I had all the proof. Then, as if on cue, Hannah called. I stared at the screen, let it ring, then blocked her number. That evening, James came over with some beers. We sat on the couch watching the game. Then a loud bang at my door. James raised an eyebrow. Expecting someone? I already knew who it was. I got up, opened the door, and there she was. Hannah, disheveled, eyes red and swollen. She looked up at me, desperate. Mark, she choked out. Please, just let me in. Hannah stood there, shivering, looking like a mess. Her hair was unbrushed, her makeup smeared like she'd been crying for hours. James stepped up behind me, arms crossed. You want me to handle this? I shook my head. I got it. Hannah's lip trembled. Mark, please. I just want to talk. I sighed. There's nothing to talk about. Her eyes filled with tears. I need you. No, you need someone to clean up your mess. I corrected. And that's not me anymore. She reached for my hand. I stepped back. Hannah, I said firmly. Go home. She sobbed. I don't have a home without you. I clenched my jaw. That's not my problem. Then I shut the door in her face. Hannah stood outside for a few minutes, probably hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. Eventually, I heard her footsteps retreat. James peeked out the window. She's getting in her car. I nodded. Good. But before she drove off, she sent one last text. I'll always love you, Mark. Even if you hate me. I stared at it for a second. Then, blocked her. For good. The next few days were silent. No calls. No texts. Nothing. I thought maybe, just maybe, Hannah had finally accepted it. Then Greg called. She moved back in with her mom, he said. Stephanie's still trying to spin everything like you're the bad guy. I snorted. Figures. She also quit the gym. That caught my attention. Ryan dump her? Greg hesitated. Yeah. Word is, he ghosted her after she started clinging to him. I shook my head. She threw everything away for that guy, and he ditched her the second things got real. Guess karma's fast, Greg muttered. I smirked. It sure is. A week passed. No word from Hannah. Then, late one night, a new number texted me. I know you blocked me, but I just wanted to say I'm sorry. Truly. I ruined everything, and I hate myself for it. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know. I stared at the message for a moment. Then, deleted it. No reply. No second chances. I was done. The divorce went through quickly. Hannah didn't even fight it. She lost the house. Lost the car. Lost me. Greg left Susan too. Last I heard, she moved in with Stephanie. And Ryan vanished. Didn't even stick around for Hannah. One night, James and I were having drinks when he raised his glass. To new beginnings. I smirked, clinking mine against his. To finally being free. And for the first time in months, I actually felt it.